Okay, so Be'ezras Hashem, we're continuing with our weekly series of Shirim on the Zohar Kadosh, where we draw down the light of Moshe Rabbeinu into the vessels of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, which is ultimately an attempt to unify Chachma and Bina, an attempt to unify the perspective of Hashem's radical unity, as it's revealed from the perspective of Einon Milvado, associated with Moshe Rabbeinu, and to draw that down into the vessels of Bina and Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, which is the apparent momentary sense that Hashem is operating by way of concealment. It's not enough to run up to the revelation of Moshe or to be in the concealment of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. What we need to do is we need to live with both of them at once, so that anytime we find ourselves in the severity of the territory of Rabbi Shimon, we know that the light of Moshe Rabbeinu is there. And anytime we find ourselves in the illumination of Moshe Rabbeinu, we know that the Kelim of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai are there. The secret of the unity is Ani v'ayin b'vasa achas. Chachma, which is the nothingness of Moshe Rabbeinu, and Bina, which is the somethingness of Rabbi Shimon. The goal is to unify both of them. And the reason that we want to try and unify both of these is not simply to create new connections, but the danger of living with a separation between these two modalities is very real, and it can have an impact on the way that an individual functions spiritually, psychologically, emotionally, in all areas of their lives. To look at Chachma, to look at the light of Moshe Rabbeinu as if it is the standalone unity of Hashem that leaves the scene anytime we enter into the territory of Bina or Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. So then when we find ourselves in the concealment of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, the concealment is going to be incredibly painful. The concealment is going to be terrifying because we're going to feel that we're actually removed from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And that's adding insult onto injury. Yes, a person has to go down into Bina in this belt. Yes, a person has to experience the flames of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. But to be in that place devoid of the awareness that HaKadosh Baruch Hu on the level of Moshe Rabbeinu, on the level of Chachma is also there, is to make ourselves feel like we're lost, is to place ourselves at the footstep of Yeush and feeling like we're completely overwhelmed. And therefore, we have to ensure that as we go down into the territory of Bina, as we go down into the universe of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, the world of Torah Sheba'al Peh, the world of exile, the world of the fear of forgetfulness and the need for promising memory, as we descend down into the thicket of darkness that is Ir Shushan, that place of concealment, we have to always remember that the light of Moshe Rabbeinu is there, that the hidden light of Chachma is always there. That is the fundamental purpose of exile, to teach us that as we descend away from Chachma into Bina, we have to come to the place of realizing that Chachma is always already still there in the very depths of Bina, but it is humble enough, it is silent enough, it is patient enough, it is concealed enough to ensure that the vessels of Bina and the vessels of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai continue to do what they need to do. This is the grand history of exile. We leave redemption, which is Chachma, which is Moshe Rabbeinu. We enter into exile, which is Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, which is Bina. And in the territory of Bina, it feels unfathomably difficult. It feels like the Hastara is so deep that there's an even Hastara on the Hastara, and Irshushan Navocha, and that Haman Harasha has a Shlita on Yehudim, Chas v'shalom, and that we're eating from the Suda of Achashverosh. When we're left to our own devices in Bina alone, without remembering the depths of Chachma, we fall into a place of fear, of separation, of concealment, and a person can lose their mind there. The Zohar HaKadosh is constantly coming to remind us that the light of Chachma is always there. The light of Chachma is always there. And so we're going to see in preparation for Purim, which is all about this revelation of coming to realize that in the heart of darkness, in the heart of concealment, we were in truth as connected, if not more deeply connected to the light of Chachma than we ever imagined we could be. It only has to come about by way of that Hastara Shabatocha Hastara and Esther Hamalka going into concealment itself so that we can come out with a full understanding of La Yehudim Ha'Sa'or V'Simcha V'Sasam V'Yikar Kenti Alanu, that light of Chachma. So we have to undergo the crucible of suffering, the crucible of difficulty, that Golus, that Shena Amuka, that Am Mefuzar Umafura, that separation that precedes all revelation. So this is what the Zohar Kadosh says on Daf 3, on Daf Kuf Pei Ches Amid Beis. Pasach Rabbi Yossi va'omer. Rabbi Yossi opens up Rabbi Yossi, which represents Gvura, represents severity, represents din. But Rabbi Yossi understands that his din is always connected to the light of Chachma. He's a Talmud of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. He knows how to connect it back to Moshe Rabbeinu. So Rabbi Yossi opens up with saying an incredible teaching. Him yavoishu v'yechalmu kol hanecharimbach. Zamin kudshabrichu leme'eved liyisrael kol inin tavin de ka'amar al yedei neviye keshot v'yisrael savlu alayhun kamabishin begalusehem. The Rabbi Yossi says that in the future, HaKadosh Baruch Hu promises to give us all of the gifts and all of the goodness that all of the true Nevi'im have promised us. And it's going to come about through all of the suffering that we experienced through exile itself. And Zakta Heilige Zohar, ve'amale kol inan tavin dekam mechakin v'chamen ksivin ba'iraisa lo havi yechaylan lemekem lemispel galusa. If it were not for all of these future promises and all of the goodness that we know is hidden away from us, hidden within the books of the Nevi'im, hidden within the depths of the Torah, so we would not be able to sustain ourselves in exile. We would not be able to survive exile because the concealment would be too difficult. Aval azlin be midrashos pitrin sifrin v'chamin kol inen tavin dekamechakin v'chamin ksivin ba'iraisa de'evtach lo in kutchabricho alayhu u'misnachmin begalusein. But in the moments of difficulty, in the moments of severity, when we become terrified over the exile that we find ourselves in, what we do is we can go to the Bati Midrashim, we can go to shuls, we can open up the books that are sitting on the shelves, and we can read about all of the goodness that is hidden away when we're patient for the future, and it's all written in the Torah, and we receive compassion and we receive comfort in that place. All of the other nations are laughing at us. All of the other nations are creating a sense of deficiency, of an existential dread over the fact that, oh no, maybe HaKadosh Baruch Hu has forgotten us. What we have to perpetually remember is that when we look into these books, we come to see that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is there with us all along. That's the Ruach HaKodesh that is ensuring that we are not going to be left alone in exile, and that there's a light of love that's hidden at every point of exile. Now, here we see the first instantiation of the light of Chachma that's being nested within Bina itself. Bina is exile. Bina is all of the suffering, all of the difficulty that Nishmas Yisrael goes through from the time of its descent from the transhistorical and transpersonal experience of individualized and collective exile as we descend down into layers of concealment. And if we're left to concealment on our own, then we don't have the ability to be soivelit. We don't have the ability to tolerate it, because who can tolerate it? Who has the ability? Ad Masai. But the secret is that the Torah HaKadosha promises us that there's going to be Geula. Nevi'im and Ksuvim promise us that there's going to be Geula. That light of the Torah, that light of Yesod Da'aba, that light of Chachma, that light of Moshe Rabbeinu that is always revealed within exile itself is our capacity to maintain faith and to maintain a sense of patience and confident waiting at the heart of exile itself, because we know that the light of the Torah is still there. We know that the Torah itself and all of the Nevuah and all of the Geula and all of the goodness that rests hidden away in the bittul of the Torah, it is still there. It might not be revealed. It might be hidden away in the books on the shelves. We might have to go to the Bati Midrashim to remember. We might have to go to the Beit Knesset to remember in the heart of exile. But nevertheless, there is a memory. There is a way of tapping into the promise of the Chachma that is hidden within all things. And when a person attaches himself to Chachma, all of the period is nispatel. It doesn't mean that redemption comes in that moment, but it means that within my own mind, I have the ability of living in a perspective of seeing my world in my days and tasting the sweet taste of redemption of Moshe Rabbeinu within exile itself. But the Zohar Kadosh continues, and it skips a few lines, and it says, Amar Reb Chia. Reb Chia says as follows, Hachi hu vadai. It's certainly like this. You're absolutely right, Rav Yossi. You're absolutely right that at the heart of Bina, there's always going to be the nested light of Chachma, the Yesod Da'aba, that's Niskala, that reveals to us Einun Ravado, even within everything that feels like it's just ode. It feels like it's ode difficulty. Within that ode, within that surplus, within that thing that feels separate and apart from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Kavyachol, that Mibal Adai, that rests in between Ani Rishon and Ani Acharon, we come to realize that really there's Einun Ravado there. But Rabbi Chia says, Hachi hu vadai, this is certainly the truth. That's on the level of vadai. On the level of vadai and the level of emes, okay, so that's wonderful. Aval chaminan v'hachi chamu takife alma v'hagalusa ismashich v'adayin labirya de David lo'asi. But enough is enough already, and ultimately we've seen all of these gedolim that come, and we've seen all of these tzaddikim that come along, and they remember redemption, but the son of David is still not here. Mashiach ben David is still not arrived. Am Rabbi Yossi v'chol da hachihu. The reason for this is because we have to wait and we have to continue to go into the shuls and to continue to go into the Bati Midrashim and to see all of the promises and to receive the nechama that comes from there. And in order to find joy in the heart, ulemispal kolma diyaisi alehu, and to develop and cultivate the patience to sit with anything that goes through us and over us. Ve'amale dalo yochlin lemispal. And if it were not for this, we wouldn't be able to tolerate it. So he says, you're right that it's a long time, but that's the name of the game. We have to uncover the light of Chachma that rests within Bina itself. So now we're going to go a few pages further in the Zohar Kadosh. We're going to Daf Kuf Tzadi, which is the secret of Kates. And the Gemara, the Zohar has such amazing lashonos about this. They say, how do we know that redemption is going to come? Because the entire process of history is referred to as one tree. And this tree is really, in the end of the day, an Eitz HaChaim. And this Eitz HaChaim is like the Kos Yeshuos Esa B'Shem Hashem Ekra. It's the Kos Shel Bracha that we discussed in the Shir of David HaMelech. That yes, it looks like Gevura, it looks like severity, it looks like difficulty. It's the life of David Malka. But in the end of the day, the long stretch of history, the long extended line in which history is revealed, which is the light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu being revealed, it's going to bring us back to a place where David HaMelech is going to say, Ani Yevarich v'li na'el levarich. I'm the one who has the ability to make the bracha. Specifically through the suffering, we come to a place of being zoichet to make the bracha, and we take the entire tree of history and we reveal that it's really been the Eitz Chaim all along, but it demands patience. And then the Zohar HaKadosh is going to go into the dynamics of this relationship. What happens when we are in Bina? What happens when we're in exile? What happens when we find ourselves in that concealment and we're trying to remember the light of Chachma, the light of Moshe Rabbeinu, the light of redemption that rests hidden within the concealment? Are we supposed to be fundamentally aware that the concealment is not really concealment, thereby negating the pain of the concealment and only living with this momentary belief in a goodness that's going to come? Or are we meant to tolerate the concealment by living within the concealment and taking shape within the concealment itself, living our lives in accordance with the concealment and living with the remez, daila chakima beremiza, that it should be enough for me to know that Chachma is there? How am I supposed to handle this? What are the dynamics of the relationship? What's happening on the ground level when a person is suffering, when an individual finds themselves in exile? Where is the Chachma at that place? How am I meant to draw down that light of Moshe Rabbeinu, that light of Yesod Abba, that light of the Torah, to be mamtik all of my suffering? What am I supposed to do in that situation? Rules and regulations on the ground. How is one meant to process concealment with the wisdom and the knowledge that Chachma rests and hides within that place? And the piece of the Zohar that we're going to look at now is going to bring us to that place, Be'ezras Hashem. Amar Rabbi Yossi, Lav have Abba Rachman al Banei Kekudshbrichu. There is no father as compassionate upon their children like HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Preceding this Chelak of the Zohar, we found this beautiful mashal of the relationship of Knesset Yisrael to HaKadosh Baruch Hu as the relationship of a son to a father, and that Knesset Yisrael also has the mother, which is the Shechina, and it's a son that's transgressing. It's a son that is going all of the different ways that he shouldn't be going. It's going away from the goal, falling deeper and deeper into the place of Bina, into a place of Dinim, into a place of concealment, to transgression, into the Beis Hazonos, as the Zohar Kadosh says, into a place of absolute depravity and a place of hopelessness itself. And the king is consistently trying to get the son to correct his behaviors, and he's getting angry at the son. The king wants to just correct the son's behavior. And the mother is trying to create this sense of patience within the king and saying, no, it's going to be good. He's going to return. And the king says, okay, he trusts the mother and he says, as long as you say that our son is going to return, we can bring him back into the palace. And then he comes back into the palace and he continues to destroy things and he continues to transgress. And now the king says, you know what, maybe if we send the mother out with the son, maybe that's going to awaken it. And so we see this process of the relationship with Nishmas Yisrael entering into a place of exile, entering into a place of Bina, entering into a place of concealment, where Malchus is always with us, where the Shechina is always with us, but the father, the Chachma, is now going to say, I'm going to take a step to the side. And so we find ourselves operating in this place of concealment, where Malchus is with us, where we still have this general sense that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is with us. We have Emunah Kolzos. We know that the Shechina is with us, but we can't remember the light of Chachma. We can't remember the fact that no, in truth, Eino Novado. And this is what the Zohar HaKadosh is going to be coming to teach us. Amar Rabbi Yossi, Lav have Abba Rachman al Banei Kekudshbrichu. When it comes to our relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu by way of Chachma, when it comes to our relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu by way of Moshe Rabbeinu, there's nothing greater than the Rachamim Rabbim that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has on us, than the love that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has for us. From that perspective, Mum Ein Bach, there's no difficulty there. Everything is Kodesh HaKadoshim. Because when it comes to Chachma, there's no concealment. And in that place, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is Rachamim Rabbim. And all of exile is just a stage. The Krahu Dichsiv, like the Pasuk says, Lo nafal davar echad mikol davaro hatov v'gomer. That not one of the good words that HaKadosh Baruch Hu says are going to be forgotten. This is the pasuk in Malachim that teaches us how much HaKadosh Baruch Hu loves us. That on the level of Chachma, everything is always good. What's the pasuk? Lo nafal davar echad mikol davaro hatov. That not one of the good words that HaKadosh Baruch Hu said or promised are going to be left behind. Tachazi, Rachmanu dili. From here we see the greatness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's compassion, the light of Chachma. Ilu amar loy nafal davar echad mikol davaro velo yasir. If Rahmana litzlan, the pasuk said that not one word that HaKadosh Baruch Hu uttered is going to go empty and going to go unresponded to. So then noyach la'alma de lo yaspari. Then we have no ability to function. If every word that HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, even the words of Malchus, even the words of Bina, are going to maintain their truthfulness and they're going to persist, and those punishments and the concealment that we feel are real, those things are going to last, then we have no possible hope in this world, and it should have been that the world wasn't created. But thankfully, the pasuk doesn't say lo nafal davar echad mikol davaro. It doesn't only say any of the words that HaKadosh Baruch Hu said will never be forgotten, but it says aval mid amr mikol davaro hatov the afik bish la'achayra the hamila de bish lo ibai lema'aved. Va'afagav de igzim va'arim ritzua asa ima la'atfa bedro yamina v'kam ritzuya b'kiyuma v'lenochas l'tata v'leyasavid. We see that the pasuk doesn't say that all of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's words are going to be remembered. It's only the good words that HaKadosh Baruch Hu said to us are going to be remembered. That's what protects us in exile. Because here we're uncovering the secret principle at the heart of exile. There are a lot of words that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to say to Knesset Yisrael. There are a lot of words that we're going to feel about ourselves. But the words that are going to maintain themselves for infinitude, the words that are going to remain in Nitzchias are the good words, the Chachma itself, the Bina, the concealment, the Malchus of it all of that feels real in its momentary fleeting nature, but in the end of the day, it's not real from the perspective of the eternal nature of history, the way that we're going to look back on every moment in our existence and see, Hashem was with us at every moment. Hashem being revealed is what is most real. Hashem's concealment is not going to be there in the future because it's not true. And as the Zohar Kadosh before this goes into a whole discussion of sheker and emes is only something that's going to be maintained as true in accordance to any circumstance imaginary. And right now, concealment seems true because it operates in accordance to the circumstances of concealment. But in the future, when we're in the circumstances of revelation, concealment is no longer going to be real, and therefore it's not considered fundamentally true. The only thing that is considered fundamentally true, the Nakuda of emes, the Raglayim of emes, is the fact that what HaKadosh Baruch Hu says is good about Nishmas Yisrael. The Chachma is real. The Bina is not so real. And so this is where the compassion comes from, the fact that only the good words that HaKadosh Baruch Hu says are the ones that are going to be real. And the mashal for this is as follows. Aval mid'amr mikol dabro hatov v'afik bish la'achora daha mila bish lo ba'i le'me'eved. So by the fact that the pasuk says that all of the good words that HaKadosh Baruch Hu says are going to be remembered, that is suturing away and cutting off the negativity and the bad words, so to speak, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu says to Knesset Yisrael from being fundamentally real. And we see that all negativity gets pushed to the side. So does that mean that now we don't have to take concealment seriously and that all we should focus on is the goodness? God forbid, because then we lose sight of what the avodah and golus is. So Zak the Heilige Zohar, va'afagav de igzim ve'arim ritzua. And even though in exile it seems that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is picking up the ritzua, is picking up the din, is picking up the gevura, is picking up the concealment, is picking up the notion that we're punishable, is picking up the notion of our concealment, is picking up and utilizing and threatening with the sense of Achti Achashverosh Anan, and it's all of the senses that we're no good, even though HaKadosh Baruch Hu engages in that hagzama, in that mugzam, in that exaggeration of negativity, and that ritzua is lifted. Itayas ima v'itkaf bedroa yamina v'kam ritzua b'kiyuma v'loinachas letata v'loyisaved. In truth, what's happening is that, yes, Avada HaKadosh Baruch Hu is lifting up those negative words and the Bina of exile. But in the end of the day, what happens is that Ima comes along, Malchus comes along, the Nekuda HaPnimis, that is the Shirish of Chachma itself that rests within exile, it comes along and it says, no, the Ritzua is not real. The Ritzua is not real. It's going to be raised, but it's not going to come down completely. That Ritzua is there, but the mother comes along, Malchus comes along and tames that Ritzua and shows that the true nature of things is the revelation creation of HaKadosh Baruch Hu and not the punishments of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, God forbid. Because what Ima does, what Malchus does in that point when the Ritzua is raised, when the threat of punishment is raised, is that there's an awakening of the right arm. What's the right arm? That's Chesed. That's the secret purpose behind all of existence. The fact that all of exile is only there to reveal more and more good. And anything that is not fundamentally rooted in absolute goodness is not fundamentally or ontologically true. It's not going to maintain its existence for eternity. The only thing that is eternally true is the goodness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Everything else falls away. And that includes the goodness of Nishmas Yisrael, which is included within the goodness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So we see that no, the Ritzua, the negativity, the Bina of it all, it's certainly there. It's being raised in a theatrical sense, but we're always being protected by the secret point of Malchus, which is reminding us that we're not really going to be punished. In truth, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is with us no matter what. Begin the be'ita chada have tarvayu ihu de igzim ve'ihu de achidas biyaminis. Because the way that HaKadosh Baruch Hu functions is that both of them are taking shape at once. Chachma and Bina are always taking place at once. The be'ita chada is where, on the one hand, the Ritzua is going to be raised, and we feel that we're in concealment. We feel that there's Achti Achashverosh Anan, and there's Hasaras Ataba'as, and that Haman Harasha stands in order to destroy us, and that feels real. But at the very same point, the Malchus is awakening the Chesed Debayim Kol Yuma, the Choy Katoiv Lehetiv, and it's all taking place at once to the degree that what's overtaking is the chachma, the chesed, and therefore the bina and the severity, even though it appears to be real, nevertheless it doesn't get to fully express itself. V'itema minalan. And if you want to ask the question, how do we know? How do we know? How do we know that this is true? How do we know that this applies, even in the deepest, darkest situations that Nishmas Yisrael experiences? And Chet HaEgel, how do we know that this is going to be true? That even though that there's din, even though that there's punishment, and even though that there's concealment, nevertheless, there's a protection from the concealment, because in truth, HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't want to punish us ever, and all HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants to do is reveal goodness. If you want to ask, how do we know this? Mimila di'ihi be'eskalia, d'chsev lech reid ki shachas amcha. Shari la arma ritzua, umoshe de lo haveyade archa de ame shatek. We know this, we see this dynamic, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu's Chachma is really the only thing that's real, in spite of the appearances of the Bina, which make us feel like we're stuck in concealment. We know this in a revealed way from the pasuk that Hashem says to Moshe Rabbeinu after Chet HaEgel, that after Chet HaEgel, after we fall into the deepest level of concealment, we tasted Chachma b'matan Torah, and we fall into the concealment of the Egel Hazav, we fall into exile itself, Rahman al-Itzlan. So at that point, what HaKadosh Baruch Hu says to Moshe is, Lech reid ki shachas amcha, go down from here, go down from a place of Chachma, because your nation has destroyed themselves. They've transgressed. They've fallen into the lowest place of Bina. Shari la arma ritzua. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu started to raise the ritzua. HaKadosh Baruch Hu raised the din. Moshe de lo haviyada arche de amma shatik. But Moshe Rabbeinu, who didn't know the way of the Shechina, Moshe Rabbeinu, who didn't know the secret of Malchus yet, Moshe Rabbeinu only knew the secret of Chachma. He hadn't yet learned the secret of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. He hadn't yet taken the neshama of Rabbi Shimon from the Malachim and understood that secret. And so in this place, Moshe Rabbeinu sees that the ritzua is raised. Bnei Yisrael messed up, and Moshe Rabbeinu doesn't know what to do. He's silent, because all he knows is Shatik Rav. All he knows is the secret of Chachma. He has not yet learned the secret of Ima. He has not yet learned the secret of Bina and Malchus, which is the fact that even when the Yidden fail, nevertheless the light of Chachma is still there. So Kivan the Chama Kutsheberichu Kach, once HaKadosh Baruch Hu sees that Moshe Rabbeinu doesn't really understand the theatrics that are going on here, and that Moshe Rabbeinu is taking the Ritzua seriously, and that Moshe Rabbeinu is taking the threat that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to punish Klal Yisrael very seriously, without understanding that in the innermost depths of it, there's only Chachma and there's only Rachamim. So kad ankidle ubatash beva amar va'ata hanichali. And so what happens is HaKadosh Baruch Hu almost like hints to Moshe Rabbeinu. He says, let go of me, let me do my thing, let me destroy them. He gives Moshe this sense of descending down from Chachma into the territory of Malchus, so that Moshe Rabbeinu can begin to experience that concealment and draw down the light of Chachma into the concealment itself. And that's the push that Moshe Rabbeinu needs to come to that core of recognition that Hashem, you can't punish the Jewish people. There's no reasonable place in which they're actually being punished now. Moshe Rabbeinu comes to understand the secret of true chachma. He realizes that no, that you have to be soleach to this nation. You're going to blame them. It's like parents who send their children to the brothel with money around their neck. You can't blame them. Moshe Rabbeinu uncovers the true strength of chachma that's miskala dafka and bina. Moshe Rabbeinu stands up. He stands up and he grabs the hand kaviyachol of Hakadosh Baruch Hu, so to speak, and he says that Ritzua is not coming down, and he awakens the memory of Avram Avinu just like the Shechina does by awakening that chesed debayim kol yuma. The punishment doesn't come down. And so we see that Moshe Rabbeinu is encountering this real-time educational process, so to speak, of how HaKadosh Baruch Hu fears the Welt. That Moshe Rabbeinu operates in Chachma. We assume that we can only find the HaKadosh Baruch Hu in Chachma. And then Nishmas Yisrael falls down into Bina, falls down into concealment. Typically in concealment, what's there to protect us is Malchus, is Bina, to remind us that yes, by all appearances, we're stuck in concealment, but nevertheless, there's still Chachma there. But over here, Moshe Rabbeinu, who is Chachma, is coming to teach this cloud to Knesset Yisrael. And therefore Hashem has to show him, Moshe, I'm getting upset right now. And Moshe Rabbeinu is silent because he says, okay, if Hashem is getting upset, Hashem is getting upset. That must be the way that Bina operates. That must be the way that Malchus operates. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu teaches Moshe to go down into the secret of the Yud Gimel, Midos of Rachamim, to be like the Shliach Tzibor, to enter into that world of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, to enter into that world of being a Shliach Tzibor, of a tzaddik who goes down to Bina, into the concealment, and from there to reveal the secret that no, Chachma is always around. And this is what's going on in Shas also, where we see that this relationship of taking place by the Egel, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu says to Moshe, do you see what they've done? And Moshe Rabbeinu says, oh my gosh, there's no way I'm going to let you destroy them. And Moshe Rabbeinu goes to bat for Klal Yisrael, but it's all through the koyach of HaKadosh Baruch Hu that Hashem sends Moshe, which is Chachma, down into Bina to learn the secret of being Malamid Tzchus on Knesset Yisrael from within Bina itself by way of uncovering the secret of Chachma, and that's by drawing down and awakening that Chesed. Moshe Rabbeinu was the one who had to teach this. There's a beautiful, beautiful Maharal that goes on one of the most powerful statements in Chazal. It's that Klal Yisrael say to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, they say, Rabbeinu Shalom, we're terrified you're never going to forget the Chet of the Egel. We're terrified that you're never going to forget the Bina that we fell into. We're terrified you're never going to forget the concealment that we fell into. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, no, don't worry, I'm going to forget it. I'm going to forget it. I'm going to see things from the perspective of Chachma. And then suddenly Knesset Yisrael say, oh my gosh, if you're going to forget the Egel, that means you could forget Matan Torah also. If you could forget Bina, that means you might be able to forget Chachma. You might be able to forget the goodness of Nishmas Yisrael. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu says that, no, I'm going to remember the Matan Torah and I'm going to forget about the Egel. How does that work? Zok Tehillah Maharal, because Chet Egel is b'mikra, and Matan Torah is be'etzem. Chachma is the etzem of a yid. Moshe Rabbeinu is the etzem of a yid. The goodness of Klal Yisrael, the goodness of our relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Rachamim Rabbim, that's the fundamental operating system. The momentary deviation and the momentary lapse of judgment and the descent down into the territory of Bina and Chet Egel is only there to be Megala, the Rachamim Rabbim of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And Moshe Rabbeinu was the one who learns the secret. Usually it's the mother who's holding up the arm of the father, Kaviyachol, and saying, don't you dare punish them. You have to understand who they are. And here it's Moshe Rabbeinu who's learning it. And at that point, Moshe Rabbeinu blocks that din from coming down. And now the Chavraya asks a question. V'itema ima di'ihi ragila la'achta b'ritzua demalka anhoit deshavka mila l'Moshe. So I understand, but why is Moshe Rabbeinu the one who's being forced to teach this over here? Usually Moshe Rabbeinu represents Chachma. Moshe Rabbeinu represents that light of unity. He represents Einun Mavado. He represents the light of Matan Torah. Why should Moshe Rabbeinu, who is Chachma, be the one responsible to uncover that secret of Chachma within Bina, the job of the Ima usually, the job of Malchus, which reveals that no matter where we fall, the Shekhinah HaKadosh is still with us. Why couldn't it have been done in the typical way? Why does it have to be Moshe Rabbeinu who had to learn this pathway? Again, why can't the Bina come to understand Chachma? Why does Chachma have to descend down into Bina? That's the question that the Zohar Kadosh asks. The Chavraya ask themselves. She'ilna va'amina v'halo yadana. We asked and we thought about it and we still don't know. We still don't know why it has to be that the derech of Hamtakas Adinim has to be that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to descend down with the most potent forms of Chachma to reveal that Ein Oid Milvado Mamish even within Shushan Abira. We still don't know Breira Demila. We're still stuck in doubt. We're still stuck in a place of Bina. We don't have certainty. We're only going to find clarity when we come to Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. That's what the Chavraya say. The only way we can learn why it is that Moshe Rabbeinu, the light of Chachma, has to go down into the territory of Bina in order to teach us that even though we find ourselves in the territory of Bina, which feels like the punishment-oriented place of distance, nevertheless, we're still fundamentally connected, and it's just theatrics, so to speak, and that Moshe Rabbeinu is always there to hold back the arm, Kavyachal of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, just like the Shechina HaKadosha is to awaken that Rachamim Rabbim, just like the king who awakens Rachamim Rabbim on his son. But the reason Moshe Rabbeinu had to be the one to teach this, we can only learn from Rashbi. Why is it that we can only learn from Rashbi? Because like we said last week also, Moshe and Rashbi are identifiable, that Rashbi has the koyach of Moshe Rabbeinu. Rashbi and Moshe Rabbeinu in the secret of the Raya Mahemna are a yichud of two separate elements, that on a certain level, when Rashbi, which is the secret of Sinai, he draws down the light of Moshe Rabbeinu in the secret of Moshe Kibel Torah Mi Sinai, where it's a yichud of Chachma and Bina at once within the realm of Rashbi himself, as the Ramchal points out. So there we see Rashbi is the one who has the ability of answering up for Moshe. Rashbi has the ability to really give an answer as to why it's specifically Chachma that has to come down into the territory of Bina in order to ensure that we're aware that all punishment and all concealment and all momentary lapses in judgment are simply momentary and lapses, but not representative of the essential nature. So they wanted to go to Rashbi in order to find out why Moshe had to teach this. When they came close to Rabbi Shimon, they saw a sign on his face that he knew what they were talking about. At this point, it's Dai L'Chakima Beremiza, that Rabbi Shimon is operating in the place of the face at this point. He's the Chachma. He's like Moshe Rabbeinu. That's why they have to go to Rabbi Shimon and ask, why did you have to come down here, Kimat? They're going to Moshe, they're going to Rashbi to figure out why Moshe Rabbeinu had to come down from Chachma into Bina to be Mamtik Bina and reveal that Chachma is always there. So they go to Rashbi, who is the secret of Moshe Rabbeinu, who did go down into the worlds of separation, and they're going to ask him, why do you have to be here? What's the answer? The Rabbi Shimon Chama Ba'anfei Simon. They saw on his face a simon, meaning to say it's not even a teaching of Rabbi Shimon, it's the sheer existence of the tzaddik that teaches us this. Amar ulu banai kadishin ulu. And Rabbi Shimon says, Meheliga children, come. Rechimen demalka, ulu. Those who love HaKadosh Baruch Hu and those who HaKadosh Baruch Hu loves, enter. Rechimen dili, those who I love and those who love me, ulu, come in. Rechimen ilan be'ilan, those who love each other, enter in. Meaning, first and foremost, Rabbi Shimon is awakening them to one thing. The struggling with the shaila, first and foremost, Rabbi Shimon is awakening them to the plus ksharn b'tlas, the three bonds of love, the three cords of love, the love between Nishmas Yisrael and HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the love between Nishmas Yisrael and its Rebbe and its Tzaddik, and the love between Nishmas Yisrael and the other. It's Hashem and Klal Yisrael, Moshe and Klal Yisrael with each and every one of their other people. It's the secret of Chavivusa Talia Milsa, love. It's starting everything off from a perspective of Chachma. If you want to understand the answer to the question of why Chachma has to come down into exile, into Bina, in order to reveal that all of the theatrics of Bina are in truth null and void in light of the radical unity of Chachma, so first and foremost, you have to enter into the secret of love. You have to enter into the secret of loving HaKadosh Baruch Hu, of loving Tzaddik, and loving Chaverim and everything else. The Amar Rabbi Abba. Rabbi Abba says, and Rabbi Shimon here is quoting Rabbi Abba, meaning to say Rabbi Shimon is the secret of Keser, and he's quoting Rabbi Abba, which is the Chachma of Keser, which is the Butzina de Kardenus and the Moiches Tima'o, which is the emergent principle of Bina from within Chachma itself, because Abba is Chachma. And he's saying again, we have to first and foremost enter into the secret of love. Kol inen chavraya deloy rechimen ilan le'ilan istalku me'alma ad loy mates manayu. Rabbi Abba says, and we saw this with Rabbi Akiva, that any of the Chavraya who don't show love to one another, who don't operate from a perspective of Chachma, who don't operate from a perspective of enoughness, but rather are caught up in jealousy, are caught up in a Bina perspective of scarcity, and that creates anger and tacharut and kina, taiv and kavod, then a person is not going to be able to live in their world for too long. A person will not be able to tolerate the Bina. If a person enters into Bina and lives in the separation, then they're going to be dissolved within the separation, God forbid. A person must hold on to the light of Chachma in that place. So Rabbi Abba taught us, anyone who doesn't hold on to Rabbi Abba, anyone who doesn't hold on to the light of love and Chachma and unity over there, so then they're not going to live long in this world. They're not going to be able to sustain themselves. Kol Chavraya b'yuma de Rabbi Shimon, all of the Chavraya in the days of Rabbi Shimon, and the secret of Anan b'chavivusa talimils. Anan b'chavivus atalimil. So kol chavraya b'yimad Rabbi Shimon rechimu denafshe v'ruche have b'naihu. There was love between the nefesh and the ruach of an individual, the body and the soul of the individual, each one and the other. There was love that saturated the world. There was connectivity. There was yichud. That's why a person can open up their mouths in Panimius HaTorah without concern in the days of Rabbi Shimon, because there was an illumination of chachma. Begin kach b'dara Rabbi Shimon be'eskalia have. And therefore, as a result of the light of Rabbi Shimon and the love and the chavivus atali milsa, and the opposite of jealousy and the opposite of disconnection, but rather in the secret of matanus levyonim, ish l're'eu matanus levyonim, and mishlach manus, and the bonds of love and connectivity that are being developed, in that generation, everything was revealed. Everything is revealed because it was filled with love, and there was a place where Torah could be revealed without concern. Chachma was present. As Rabbi Shimon himself said, that any of the chavraya who don't know how to love each other properly or operating from a place of scarcity, getting too stuck in bina, of separation, without maintaining that semblance of unity and chachma that rests at the core, so they're going to deviate from the straight path, and they're going to enter into that path of complication. Not only are they themselves going to be pushed off of the path, but they're going to destroy the path. They're going to be poigim in the Torah, because the Torah is nothing other than the unity between Chesed and Gevurah, between Avram and Yitzchak, between two oppositional elements, which reveals the secret of love. That's the secret of Chachma. Bina is all of the differentiation. Chachma is the unity of the principles. And therefore, Rabbi Shimon is saying, without Chachma, without beginning with Chachma, we don't have anything. We have to remember Chachma. Avram rachim liyitzchak v'yitzchak la'avram. Mischabkin da b'da Yaakov tavayu achiden be'brechimu v'achva. We see that the fundamental relationship of the Torah of Gilui is that Avram loves Yitzchak, Yitzchak loves Avram, Yitzchak loves Avram, and both Avram and Yitzchak, which are oppositional in their essence, are unified together in the secret unity of Yaakov Avinu. It's anan b'chavivus atalimil. So there's love. There's love. Uba'achva yahavin ruche da b'da. Chavraya kehahu dugma itztaribu v'loy leme'ed be'pekim. The chavraya of Rashbi have to function in this way. Everybody has to function in this way. It's the opposite of an am mefuzar umefurad. It's not operating in moichin of bina. It's starting first and foremost with the world of Kol Yisrael, which is adaraba, adaraba, tein belibenu, shenira kol echad, malas chaverinu, v'lo chesronam, sheidaber kol echad, es malas chavero. As the Heilige Rebbe of Melech wrote in the Tefillah Koydem HaTefillah, that adaraba, when other comes, and the transformation takes place, we have to stop looking at each other with eyes of scarcity and eyes of jealousy and eyes of wanting, and open ourselves up to eyes of enoughness and being mamlech chaverecha alecha, of crowning our friends upon ourselves, of realizing that nishmas Yisrael b'shayrasho burns like the brilliance of the sun. It's that bittul that is necessary to draw down the light of chachma. Kiven dechama simen ba'anpaihu. Once Rabbi Shimon saw a sign on their face, and they saw the sign on his face, meaning they understood that Rabbi Shimon was with them all along, and that Rabbi Shimon understood exactly what they were talking about, and they knew what Rabbi Shimon was going to answer. Amr lein hachi. Rabbi Shimon says as follows. Rabbi Shimon answers up the question, why is it that Chachma has to descend down into Bina to reveal that Bina is just a mirage? Why can't Bina ascend up to Chachma? Why can't Malchus be Mamtik Malchus itself? Why does Chachma have to come all the way down? And this is what's happening on Purim. The light of Purim is that Yesod Da'aba is Maskala in the world of Malchus, that Chachma goes all the way down to Malchus to reveal how all of the concealment, even the concealment of the Chet HaEgel, even the concealment of the Suda of Achashverosh, is all Mevuta B'tachlis HaBittul in the light of the Chachma, in the light of Yesod Da'aba, which is Ein Oid Mulad Mamish. Zot the Heilige Rabbi Shimon. Amrulei, Vadai Ruach Nevuah. They saw that Rabbi Shimon knew. The Chavra saw that Rabbi Shimon knew, and they said, Vadai Ruach Nevuah Shora Abutzina Kadisha Vahalchi Itztarach Lan Laminda. Clearly, Rabbi Shimon knows what we've come to ask, and now he's going to reveal to us what we have to know. Now, going back to the first shita in the Zohar, which says that we experience exile, we can't be soivel exile. The only way we can be soivel exile is to go to the words of the Nevi'im that are written in the books, in the shuls, and in the Batei Midrashim. It's the same inyan. They're seeing Nevuah within Rabbi Shimon. They're seeing the Nevi'u, the Chachmasa. They're seeing the flow of Chachma into the world of exile, into the world of concealment, and they're beginning to understand the answer even before having to ask the question. They're coming to understand that Avad the Moshe Rabbeinu has to descend down sometimes to reveal that the concealment of Bina is not such thick concealment, because We need to know that. Without knowing that from Chachma itself, we're never going to know. We're never going to have the confidence of knowing that all that exists truly is Chachma and that Bina is just an extension of Chachma. Without Moshe Rabbeinu coming down, without Rabbi Shimon and the generation, we can fall into the trap of thinking that the Gullus is real or thinking that the main thing is the suffering, God forbid. So in response to that, Bacha Rabbi Shimon, Rabbi Shimon, like we saw in the Adir Bamaron, Rabbi Shimon, he awakened himself from the tears of Bina, and he took all of the suffering of Bina and all of the Hisairis from Lamata of Bina, all of the Hasaras Hataba'as, which works stronger than the Memches Nevi'im, all of the Stira and the Hastara and the Hastara Shabbatoich Hastara and the Knisa into the Beis Atzlamim and the Kasher Avadati, he takes it all through that Bechia, he takes those tears, the Bechia, which is the Gematria of the Miloi of Shem Sag, which is the shame of Bina, and Rabbi Shimon takes it, Ba'amar Chad Mila Me'ilin Milin Dilachishuli Migoi Reish Mesifta Beginsa De Eden Deloy Amru Be'eskalia Milada Sitra Ihu Ve'emalachu B'nei Rechimnu B'nei Rechimin De Nafshi Mai Avadu Amrile Belachisha Va'ana Ema Be'eskalia. Here we see the greatness of Moshe Rabbeinu, here we see the greatness of Rabbi Shimon. The secret of Chachma going down into Bina to reveal Einon Mavada, the secret of Mordechai Yatzam Lefnei HaMelech coming down into the ear of Shushan to reveal that light is, Rabbi Shimon says as follows. He says, I know the answer to this. I know the answer of why Chachma has to come down sometimes to poke a hole in Bina. I know why Chachma sometimes has to come down and illuminate the greatness of the unity of HaKadosh Baruch Hu in the territory of concealment, and how it's not enough for us to learn the secret from within concealment itself. We have to have the fullest expression of light. But I know these words because they were whispered to me. They were whispered to me from the Rosh Hashiva in Gan Eden. And he did not tell them to me in a revealed way. He told me to them in a hidden way, for this matter is profoundly hidden. But because I see that there's love, and I love you, and my nefesh loves your nefesh, what he told it to me in a whisper, and I'm going to tell it to you in a revealed way. What's so secret about what Rabbi Shimon is about to say? What's so dangerous about the secret that Rabbi Shimon has to preempt the fact that, okay, I'm going to tell you this secret? Because to poke a hole in Bina, to poke a hole in the Ritzua, to show that the Ritzua is be'emes, yes, it's being raised, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu is angry, Kavyachol, and that there's a moment during the day where Hashem is angry, and that Nishmas Yisrael has to do tshuva perpetually. There also has to be a recognition of Yeshin Yan Sheitapecha Kol Letova. And that Inyan Sheitapecha Kol Letova is the Hiskalis of Chachma Lamata in the Olamas of Bio, which is the secret of the Ha'ara of Mordechai, which is the Yesod Da'aba, which is Mispashet from within Zah and within Nuk, and it's Miskala within the worlds of separation and Bri Yitzir and Asiya, in Or Mufla Remala of Purim Day, where everything is transformed to be Kodesh HaKadoshim Mamash. And again, there's Purim in every day, and there's Purim in every hour, and there's Purim in every minute, and there's Purim in every second, and every thought that a person can have. There's an Hakara of Purim. There has to be an Or Mufla Remala that comes down. And that Or Mufla Remala that comes down reveals to us that all of the threats of concealment and all of the threats of exile and all the threats of punishment and all of the Ritzua Bisha that HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants to punish us with, in truth, have a batla ka'afre da'ara. It's mevutel ka'afre da'ara in the lens of Chachma, where we come to that recognition of Ein Oid Milvado and Choy Katoib Lehitiv, and that all HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants to do is to give us the ability to be misanig al Hashem and to enter into that place of Pnimius Chachma, Pnimius Atik. There's a Gilui Lemafreya that all Choshech is nothing but an Eved of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and that the middle period of the Mi Beladai that separates Ani Rishon from Ani Achron is only a momentary lapse in judgment that lends us the momentary belief that exile is real, but in truth, redemption is ever present. An idea like this is frightening, because if a person comes to know that the Ritzua is not real, if a person comes to know that the Ritzua is not really going to hurt in the way that we feel that it's going to hurt, if we know that all imagined distance from HaKadosh Baruch Hu is simply that, imagined, and in truth there's nothing that a Yid can ever do that actually removes them from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, then we're not going to be so afraid. Then God forbid a person can come to forget about the necessity of Bina. A person could come to forget about the necessity of Avodah Lishma. A person could come to forget, God forbid, about the necessity of ensuring Yirah Shamayim and ensuring that we do everything that we need to do. We have to maintain the semblance of Bein Araham and the Baruch Mordechai. But there's one day a year, there's the light of Purim, where Moshe Rabbeinu himself comes down to be mamtik everything, where Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai comes down, where the Yesod Da'aba and Chachma is Maskala in the worlds of concealment, and it has to come to reveal the joking nature of all concealment. And that's why it had to be whispered to Rabbi Shimon, because this idea is potent. This idea can give a person the ability to be okay. This is the idea that reminds us, The Nevi'im told me this was going to happen. The Tzaddikim told me this was going to happen, and I have to push forward because I can live in that place in my mind where the Geula is already there. I can live with the Vitebska's room in my mind, in that Chachma of Tiberia. All of the stories in this week's Parsha start off with walking away from Tiberia, because in that place of Tiberia, there's that Hakara already that Geula is here. And in that place, it has to be whispered still. It's a Lechishu. It was whispered to me, Rashi says, I know the secret from Gan Eden, but for you, because I see that you love each other and I see that you're operating in a place of functionality, I'm going to tell you the secret. I'm going to minimize all of the concealment. I'm going to make a laughing stock out of the concealment. I'm going to poke a hole in it, and I'm going to tell it to you in a revealed way. That's the revelation of Mordechai HaTzadik. That's the revelation of Yesod Abba that's Mesgala. Yes, it's always there, Bahastara. Yes, the tzaddikim always know that the light of Chachma is Maskala in the lower worlds. But over here on Purim, it's going to be Be'eskalia. Ulazimna denachme anpin ba'anpin, kol anpin yitzamchu mida, b'ni chayva. And in truth, says Rashbi, in the time where there's going to be Nechama, and there's going to be a Panim El Panim, and there's going to be a return back to the fundamental reality and unity of Chachma, we're all going to be reliant upon each other. We're all going to know this deep secret, that everything is Chachma. But the Choyva da Avdu, Erev Amadilabar, the bina that we fell into, says Rashbi, the concealment that Nishmas Yisrael falls into, it looks real, it feels real, that comes from the external parts of ourselves, that comes from the Erev, that comes from the surplus, that comes from those parts of ourselves that are not yet refined, those parts of ourselves that have not yet taken upon themselves Ol Malchus Shemayim, that Irbuvia, that concealment, that admixture, which is necessary until the time of redemption, which Moshe Rabbeinu is always trying to be mamtik, and that's what happens. The more Moshe Rabbeinu looks down into that place of biyah and separation, the more Moshe Rabbeinu is mamtik all of those inyanim, and the more we can be mamtik all of those yanim and have compassion on Neshama of Moshe Rabbeinu, which is stuck, still fighting Keneged Baal Pa'or and fighting all of that bina, and we can bring Moshe Rabbeinu into Yerushalayim, and we can say, Moshe Rabbeinu, you don't have to fight so much anymore, because we understand that everything is good and everything is light, and that you live in Mibein Shnei Akruvim, in that secret place of Kodesh HaKadoshim. When we understand that the concealment comes from those externalized elements of ourselves and not from the innermost point of Chachma, so that's already going to be mamtik the dinim, and we're going to take the dinim less seriously. And what happens at that time of the Egel is that Klal Yisrael, they fall as a result of the klipa of Erev Rav, which are the descent down into Bina. And they lost Moshe Rabbeinu, they didn't know what to do, they needed to replace something. So they fall into this trap of making Elokim, of making a replacement. Vaday kvod Yisrael da ihu deshaya alayhu ki ima albanin v'dahu raz d'chsiv v'yamiru es kvodem b'taf neshor. What did they do? Klal Yisrael didn't realize that the Shekhinah was always there. They lost Moshe, yes, but the Shekhinah was always there. And had they understood that the Shekhinah was always there and that Moshe Rabbeinu was just there to teach us that the Shekhinah is always there, then we would not have had to make an Egel. The Egel was a replacement for Elokim Kavyachol, which Rashbi says is obviously Elokim rests within Klal Yisrael, which is the secret of the Shekhinah, that point of godliness that rests within the Bina moments of our lives. But they didn't realize that, and they came to try and replace it with more of a revealed element, which is the tavness of the shore. The shore is the severity. The shore is the Bina. The shore is trying to find Hashem in a revealed way when we feel concealed. The kvodim di Yisrael amadilhon. This was the kavod of HaKadosh Baruch Hu in Nishmas Yisrael that we exiled from ourselves. The hahu chsiv galuk gale kvod, that we pushed away the innermost kavod, which is the shchinta that rests within the innermost point of each and every yid, that nekuda of the yechida shabenefesh, and we searched out foreign ways of finding comfort. The garmu l'shchinta de eskalia begalusa imhon, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is always with Klal Yisrael, even in exile, even when it appears that Moshe is removed from us, even when it appears that Amarti Echakme v'hi rechaykim mimeni, even when it appears that Chachma is gone and that I don't know the difference, nevertheless, we should have known that the Shekhinah is always there, that there's an innermost light burning at the heart of Bina, which is the secret of the Shekhinah of Malchus that knows that Abba, the Chachma, doesn't want to ever hurt. It only wants to prepare us to properly understand the true potency of the Tainug of Emunah and Gula. And Malchus usually has the ability of pushing down the Ritzua and awakening the Chesed Debayim Kol Yuma, the chesed of Avram Avinu, the goodness that is inherent within each and every yid. But there are times, especially in the time of the Chet HaEgel, where we pushed the Shekhinah away from us, and it wasn't revealed to us. We transferred the kavod that rested within us, that hakara, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is with us everywhere, and we replaced it with a tavnis of shore. Hacha ihu razadmila. This is the secret of the matter. And Rabbi Shimon says, what happened here? We descended, Nishmas Yisrael descended into dinim. Nishmas Yisrael descended into the first instantiation of din, into gvura, which congeals itself into appearing that it's something separate from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and they forgot the real secret that Bina itself is just the outer lip of Chachma, and that Bina is perpetually emergence from Chachma, and that the light of Rashbi is always emergence from the light of Moshe Rabbeinu. And it's this mistaken perspective of the din that leads us to think that Gevura is something real because it comes from Bina that keeps us stuck in exile and forgetting about the light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu is there. And Zak the Heilige Rabbi Shimon, Tachazi, Letata Goishmarim Dechamra Dordayin Bisha Nafak Chad Ir Ura Mekatraga Mazika Kadma'a V'Yubraza Diyukna Da Adam. Really, when you want to understand how is it that concealment emerges from infinitude. So Rabbi Shimon is hinting to the Indian of Butzina de Kardanusa here. Butzina de Kardanusa is referred to in the Ijarabba as Chamar al Dodayev, the dredges of wine that rest at the bottom of the wine. The wine represents the infinitude, so to speak, and the dredges of wine, the congealment of wine, represents the potentiation towards limitation and the emergence of din in that place of the refinement of Chachma. That's referred to as the Butzina de Kardanusa, that is the innermost point of Chachma, which is the potential of Chachma to express itself downwards by way of limitation, because it's mislabish on the Gevura of Atik and the secret of the illumination of darkness, that first instantiation of darkness. So Rabbi Shimon is saying what happens is that yes, Avada, Kadosh Baruch Hu creates Tzimtzum in this world, but in the beginning, Tzimtzum is just Goy Shmarim the Chamr Derdayan Bishan. It's the secret of the emergence of concealment prior to concealment itself. But Gevura expresses itself lower and lower, and that Butzina de Kardanusa, which is the Pnimius of Chachma, which is the Moichas Tima'a, it then goes down into Bina, which is already the place where Dinim are going to begin to be revealed, and then from Bina it goes down into Gevura until it comes to all of the klipos and the concealment that we encounter. And so Rabbi Shimon says, first HaKadosh Baruch Hu is Megala the Tzimtzum, the secret of the Butzina de Kardanusa, and then from that place, Nafek Chad Ir Ura Mekatraga Mazika Kadma, from there is awoken the first impulse towards concealment, which is this destructive force which appears in the shape of the human being, meaning to say in our own minds, where we fall into this place where we feel we're far from HaKadosh Baruch Hu and we're stuck in Bina without Chachma. Kad Karev Lagoy Kadsha, Kivan de Is Aver Mitemon Uboy Lenachta Latata. It comes to a place of Kedusha. It comes to a place of Kedusha, but it can't rest there. So it still tries to push forward, downward. Concealment grows and concealment expresses itself. Until Gevura suddenly takes on a shape that it looks like it's coming to destroy the world. Now, it's not really trying to destroy the world. Gevura is as revelatory of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's revelation as Chesed is, and a person has to remember this. This is the secret of drawing Chachma down into Bina to realize what Bina actually is. And all of the Gevuros begin to emerge into the forces and the armies. And the way that Gevura takes on its levush after the hishtalshalus of the Gevuros from that refined place of the Butzina de Kardanusa, where it's fundamentally clear that all Gevura is nothing but a revelation of a Kadosh Baruch Hu, and it descends down, down, down to the degree that it takes on the shape of the first instantiation of Gevura, which is the shore, which is the first of the Arba Avos Nezikin that we learn about in Bava Kama. The fact that the world is a destructive place and a dangerous place when we don't hold cup on the Chachmanid. V'kula tlasa da avos nezikin bar shor kula delay. V'aldok siv v'yamiru es kvoidam betavnes shor. The reason that they fell into the shore was because they grabbed hold of this notion, says Rashbi, of that they were operating in the place of Bina without the light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, without Chachma. But, nevertheless, what was that shore eating? What was that shore partaking of? Mahu oichel esev. As Chazal tell us that it looked like the shore was eating esev. Ha darshinan bei, as it's been taught. Aval ikra demila metamtzets de lechem v'sheva zine dagan leis behu chulka. Ubegenei kach em lo yihos teman v'lo yaus la lemehve teman. The truth of the matter is, as concealed as it looks, as concealed as concealment begins to appear, and when concealment really gets into a place of concealment like it does by the Chet HaEgel, it appears that concealment is alive, it appears that concealment is eating from the Esev, it appears that concealment is as real as the revelation of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And in a time where concealment takes shape, where it appears to be as real as HaKadosh Baruch Hu, God forbid, Malchus doesn't have the strength to awaken it. Malchus no longer can awaken that spark to illuminate the fact that the Chacham of HaKadosh Baruch Hu still reigns supreme, and that Einon Milvadok Siv, and that La'ihudamai Sa'or and the secret of an hapechu. In that place, Malchus is not strong enough. We need the Giloy me lamala, lamala, lamala. We need the light of Chachma. We need the Chachma Kaduma, that Yud Chachma Kaduma that comes down to eliminate all darkness. And the hint comes out to show that yes, concealment is real, but what was it eating from? It was only eating from the Asev. It was only eating from the externalization of things. It wasn't partaking of the lechem. It wasn't partaking of the shevamine dagan. It wasn't partaking of the beautiful fruits of Klal Yisrael. It wasn't partaking of the actual sustenance, because no matter what concealment seems to take control over, it never has anything under its control other than the externality of things. And this illumination can only come about by Moshe Rabbeinu. When Malchus is contained within concealment itself, it can't break free from the concealment, because in Chavash Matios Atzmo, and in a place of concealment like this, in the Chet HaEgel, in Ir Shushan Hayanavoicha, it's only the light of Moshe Rabbeinu that can come down and fix this and reveal that no, it looks like there's a punishment coming, but in truth, it's only there to reveal the light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And that's what Rabbi Shimon is saying. In the place where the illumination of the dinim are so thick and so strong, the light of Ima, the light of Malchus, couldn't reveal its light there, because it wasn't appropriate for be there in that place. It would have been concealed. We begin the Abba Havayada Rahmana the Ima v'Archa Delay Amr LeMoshe B'ni Rechima Ita B'Tavayhu Da Tadir. And Rabbi Shimon says, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says to Moshe Rabbeinu, I know what the Shekhinah wants to reveal. I know the Shekhinah is always there with Klal Yisrael, but the Shekhinah doesn't have the koyach of being megala that right now. Bina can't be mamtik the dinim of herself. You have to go down and you have to reveal it. Bevas achas, there has to be the din and the chesed bevas achas. It has to be chokhmah and bina bevas achas. The chokhmah has to be mislabish in the worlds of Bri, Yitzir, and Asiya, and the secret of Yisod the Abba that's miskala lamatim esar tvachim. V'dohu belechishu li belechishu delo chazi legala dabra delo yanda v'yichyu dar that this can't be revealed the rest of the year. We can't know that the lifting up of the Ritzua and the Din is only there for a theatrical purpose, so to speak, which is to awaken within us the love of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. If we knew that all that there was Chachma, if we knew that all that existed was the illuminating light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, if the worlds of separation were illuminated by Yesod Da'aba with Chachma at every moment, then there would be no room for us to be afraid of anything. And therefore Rashbi says this had to be whispered. It had to be whispered to me, because this is not a teaching that is so appropriate for the entirety of the world to understand, except on Purim. They whispered it to me, because we shouldn't know this. The person can't know this. Because we have to be afraid. We have to have Yerushalayim. We have to live in the world of Bina. But in truth, in this moment, both of them are fundamentally rooted in that same place, the unity of Chachma and Bina. On the day of Purim, there's a revelation that Chachma comes down, and it reveals that everything serves at the purpose of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And now, what we do is we take all of the Kalim of Haman, and all of the Kalim of Shushan, and all of the Kalim of Bina, and all of that fear, and all of that forlornness, and all of the emptiness that seems to abide after the Tzimtzum and after the Nasira, and we elevate it all the way back up to the place of Chachma, and we bring it all the way back up to Chachma, which brings us to a place of Pnimius Chachma, Pnimius Atik, which are the Moichin of Ad Lo Yada ben Arahaman LaBaruch Mordechai, which is the revelation of Chacham Lamata to be Mavatal, the Dinim of Bina, and in that place we're Zocha to the lights of Keser, which gives us the ability to prepare for Pesach and then to come to Shavuos with the full recognition that all of the stages of existence are all perpetually moving upwards to the secret of Keser Elyon Alav Nikra. This is the secret of Kacha Yasali Isha Shar Melech Hafetz Bikaro. Kacha is the unity of Chachma and Bina. This and that, both these and those, the concealment and the revelation, are both shown to be fundamentally within the realm of Chachma, within the realm of Moshe Rabbeinu, and it's the secret of Rashbi within Moshe, and Moshe within Rashbi, which is Emasai Kasi Mar, Mem Reish, which is the secret of the mituk of the dinim of Amalek, which is the gematria of Suffolk, which is Reish Mem, which is 240, and the unity of Rabbi Shimon and Moshe Rabbeinu has the secret of being mamtik all of those dinim, of coming to realize that the Yesod Da'aba is Naskala, that Einon Milvado, that Choy Katov Lehitiv, that every moment in a person's life, they have to not only bring Malchus back up to Bina, of seeing how all of the separation is part and parcel of Asamish revelation, but to take it the next level, to bring it back up to Chachma, to the place of Menucha, to the place of understanding that I can go back down into the territory of concealment, and not be so afraid, that I'm calm, confident, cool, and strong in the Koyach of my Neshama. And in that place, a person goes up to the highest level of Keser, which is where a person no longer needs anything externally. It's a stimu de'inin mechezi alma, and in that place a person has a perpetual renewal within themselves and a burning desire of bina within the heart to reach higher and higher in the secret of tshuva, an tshuva, where I no longer need the descent in order to awaken the ascent, because there's an inherent descent within the coming to self and then running upwards without any descent whatsoever. In that place of Ani v'ayin b'vasachas. And be'ezras Hashem, we should be zeicha to Gula Shlema, Gula Sadas, the secret of Moichin the Katnas and Gadlus, and to have Rava Shachat or Rabbi Zera, that the Moichin the Gadlus, which is Chachma, shechs the Moichin the Katnas, which is Rabbi Zera, to reveal that Chachma is found within Bina, and that Bina is nothing other than a differentiated iteration than Chachma itself. And with this, we can come back to the secret of Reshad Lo Asyada, of Ad Lo Yada, and be zeicha to Geula be'ezras Hashem.